Good evening, Tamers. Let's do something a bit different. We're going to do the BT10. Beautiful tier maker here. I'm having to kind of technically use a pre-made chart because somebody has already done thousands of these before me, probably. And it's very kind of them that I'm going to use this because it's safe to tier master and I have no idea how it works. And this is how we do it, baby. But looks like this is a lot of Japanese cards in here. So if someone did this like a while ago and they're just trying to go like, oh, you know, we'll just use this card. We've got the sample for it. Some of it's in English though, so maybe it was while we're getting some things earlier in the cycle. But let's get this over and done with, and I think we'll have a great time. So, for instance, we have Machine Drum on here. Machine Drum, I'm going to say, is a rogue deck at best. It doesn't have access to its cool tools yet. It does have access to the Mega Drum, which is really good for Tamer hate. But other than that, it's not really doing much in the format. One did win a locals the other week, but it was playing a BT9 format, so it wasn't quite chugging along as it has before. Phanemon is definitely rogue. It's got massive issues at the moment. Once we get into EX3 though, it's going to have a great time. It's going to have access to its beautiful new War Groundmon that gives you the ability to just throw down a Takato when you digivolve. So you mill, check your hand, check your trash. Is there one in there? There is. Awesome. Throw it on the field. Where Guru, I'm going to say it's tier 1 still. It's still really good. It's still winning games like turn 2, turn 3 because it's just so effectively good at just churning itself out. This is the wife's deck, so I'm not saying she's massively competitive, but she does just draw the nuts. Like she's so good at just going like, oh, it's turn 2 and I've swung like 6 times. It's like, oh yeah, fantastic. There's nothing you can do about it. Shiva is literally, oh god, why? I don't think it's terrible. I think the deck itself is really good, but you've now got the access to Bloomlord, which is just a better version of it. I think this deck could come along when we have a really high security meta again, which maybe is more competitive scene. A lot of security con goes around, and if your opponents can't do anything to your board because they can't use option cards, then yeah, I think it's a really good deck to do. But again, it's high competitive ceiling. I think it's one of those decks that it's not very good normally, but in an environment where you're probably going to run into 10%, maybe 8% security control for your day, yeah, it's a good chance it's going to be good. Imperial, I'm going to say, is tier 2. It's still a good deck. It's still pretty quick. It's just not as quick as some of these other decks, and that's where this is having its issues. There's no new cards for this currently. EX3 brings in red-purple Imperial, which I was hoping was going to be the Bulls, the Dog's Bollocks, but no, unfortunately, it's not that good. It takes up a lot. You got to have the best opening hand ever, and you've got to be able to get everything in the trash when you need to. But blue-green, or is it what is it, UG, because of magic? It's still a fairly good deck. It's just not as good as some of the other decks. Blast Mode, I'd say this is also a tier 2 deck, because if you can't stop it from deleting your stuff off the field, which I think most decks can't currently do that now. Obviously, with Xros who can put things on the Tamers and stuff, it's not such a bad thing now, because obviously you're getting deleted, but you can still get rid of things. But it's very consistent at just churning out deletion effects. It's pretty good. Again, tier 2. For now, it's just for fun. I think when the competitive deck comes out, you might bump up to tier 1.5 to tier 1, because it can just go oh, turn 1 I just got rid of 15 trash. Turn 2 I'll just put the next 5 in, and now all my stuff's kicking off and I've just done what was it, 4 swings in 1 turn. So it can be really good and really aggressive really quickly. Alpha, I would still say is tier 1. We're not going to get a ban on this card, and if we do, it's just because they want to just set the playing field. Duro Greymon, fantastic card, very good, very powerful, has amazingly unique skills compared to a lot of other cards. I think the only thing that comes close to it is the level 6 in the Ragnarlord deck, which is can't be deleted, added to hand, or put to deck if you unplayed by an effect and then something put in the source or something like that. It's basically the same thing, but on a level 6, so not as good. But no, I think Alpha's really good. It's just one of those decks where you do have to be really good at drawing the outs at the right time and just swinging as hard as you can. Galmon, no. So yeah, this again, Black War Greymon Galmon, definitely a tier 1 deck. It won the London Regional. It won, I think, the American Regional of the same week. And I think the week before that, it won the Italian regional. I'm sure it's like it had like 3 in a row where like Black or Greymon just went crazy. Yes, surprisingly enough, the red base is the best base because if you can just run through things, you just run through things. But no, it's really good. I am looking forward to the black base version in BT11, as that's just like don't delete things because you've got like Greymon effects. Is really good. Bielstar, it's awkward. I think a lot of people want to play Bielstar, but I think it's getting kind of awkward. I think it is more rogue than it is tier 2. It still does the same things it used to do. It's just not going to get a chance to use them as much as like over here. Things are pushing through harder. You have to hit things in security, and if you're just ignoring effects, there's nothing you can do about it. Bielstar, still a very good deck. It's just not had any major support for itself for a while. I think if it gets access to the security rookie, it might get bumped up a little bit into tier 2. But again, we've not heard anything about the security rookies as of now and for a while. I can't even tell what this code is. Is that... That's Dark Knightmon. Dark Knightmon's tier 2. Again, it's one of these new decks. It's cross-heart style decks. But it's got a lot of on deletion, do this. Easy to get into your Mega from your level 4. It has good recursion. It's got a good play test ability. It's a great card. So I just think they need to... I don't think it's going to get any more support, really. I know, like, basically evolves into Bagrat Armor in BT11. But no, I think the deck's in a good place. It's a good, solid tier 2. Maybe 1.5 if you're really good at playing the deck. But I don't think it's going to be the tier 1 material at all. Blue Flare. Blue Flare is just absolute dog awful right now. I think it's more rogue just because of what it was. Before it was really good because it was essentially just like a solid control deck that just essentially ignored what your opponent wanted to play with you because it was essentially just like Blue Hybrid 2.0. It was really good at it because it had more cards that did the whole like if you have no sources, you can't block, you can't attack. So when you got like, you know, basically double the amount in the one deck, it was really good. Obviously now, it's rogue as anything. Yeah, I think people are trying to play the deck, but it's just like, it doesn't have any other options than being a control deck. And if you've only got the one option and they've stunned, forgive it, your main option, which is just spamming Tommies, yeah, you're not really doing much. Minerva, I think, is a tier 2 deck. I've heard people saying it's like tier 1, but I don't think it's quite there yet. I think once you get to BT11, we get the access to the actual Minerva card. Yeah, I think we'll just like loop, rotate, go crazy. And then BT12, you get an armor purge, so when you're swinging for the first time, you just drop your armor if you die in security, basically, and you're like, let's do it again. But no, I do think this deck's really good. I think once it gets to BT12, it could be tier 1. I think even when it gets to like BT11, we could get a tier 1 deck. But right now, tier 2, I think that's fair, but I think it's still a good deck. So Phanemon Control, tier 2. Now you can be like, oh, come on, it's so good. It is really good, but it takes a little bit of setup, and that's kind of the issue with some of these decks. That you know, you've got to set these cards up first. You've got to build up a stack. It's not the cheapest. Obviously, it does have the plugins to make it a bit quicker and a bit easier. It does help, obviously, with all your on Digivolution effects, use an option card, or gain some back from the trash. It's a fairly good deck, and I think it's really a key point that they wanted to make the Rika deck, the Arena deck, the Sakuyamon deck essentially be the, you know, playing your options, which is essentially what she did in the anime, which makes sense to it. Venusmon, I wish this was just Dogfight. I'm going to put it here. Oh god, why? No, it's here because I just don't like the idea of it. How Bandai has done this weird thing where it's like keywords never leave a card. So that way, when you have Security Attack +1 and then Security Attack -1, you don't go like 0. You get 2, so you get both keywords. So it's even more weird. Personally speaking, no, I think she's also in the tier 2. I've not seen anyone running this currently. They just did show support for this in BT12, where I think the deck might be going like tier 1.5 to tier 1, because essentially it's just get your Mega out and just start throwing down bodies, which, yeah, it's interesting. It's a different style. It's back to the horrible image of Lord Nightmon, except it's not on about attacking. It's essentially just having a body on the field that stops you from having security attacks, and because there's a keyword now fixated to things, you gain things off of it. Makes sense, build up the archetype. Bloomlord is suffering from tier 2-itis because it did not get the security rookies. If you didn't see, we did a video like jokey thing about this the other day, but for the most part, Bloomlord didn't get access to the rookies that gave it essentially more options to have in security, which was, I think it's a 2k body, so if you swing him with 1k or 2k, it kills it. Then it suspends another Digimon on the field.
And then I think it's any Digimon as well, so it's like just like, oh yeah, is that your level 7? Suspend it. And then it has return to hand as well. So it's very fantastic card, having like 3 abilities on one card. And security. But yeah, we've not heard anything about the security. Same thing really for Bielstar. Once we hear about the security things, I think these decks might go up a tier. But for now, they're not doing what they need to do. Grandis is tier 2. But like more the pure version, not the Digiburst one. You can do the Digiburst one still, it's still very effective. But there is a Grandis build now you can build, which is more about using the BT10 Coag into the X antibody into the Okawagu. Is that Okawagu? Kuwagu? Kaku? Whatever the level 4 is, and then going into level 5, and then going into the Grands and then Grandis. So yeah, it's a really good looking deck, but I don't think it's going to play out as well. I think it's just slow. Although the evolution costs are fairly friendly, I don't think it's just doing what it needs to do in comparison to like the other like tier 1 decks. D-Brigade. D-Brigade, I think, is... It's awkward. It's like tier 1.5, and like the only deck that is tier 1.5 because it's good. It's a really good deck. It's really solid. It's a rookie rush deck with a high ceiling on it. Obviously, we get a more pure version in EX3, which I look forward to playing because I love D-Brigade. I was the idiot that played D-Brigade in BT4, and my games that I had to play against were always like Nidhogg, so I never got anything. I never got to do anything. Just stuck there, just like looking at my empty trash, being like, yeah, this is really fun for D-Brigade. But no, I think currently it's a really good position. They're still winning locals. Obviously, a locals is a local. It's not the same as a regional, but they did really well. I think this was like the 5th or 4th like most played deck at London Regionals, and it did fairly well. I think there was like 3 or 4 at the top of 20. I have no idea like why Dan Devimon's here. That's going to go, oh my god, why? I don't know why it's here. I don't know if it's got a deck. If someone could tell me in the comments why this is here, let me know. I just don't know. D-Reaper. I think D-Reaper's actually tier 2. It's better than Rogue because it has plays and synergies and it works really well with itself as long as you can find the cards. Searchers, you're amazing. It's not tier 1. Def X makes it better, but I do think it's like in this area where these better decks just outspeed it in every single way and there's nothing you can do. If you haven't seen it already, go watch Zhao's interview. He basically tells you like why he was losing to his only matchup of D-Reaper. D-Reaper. Because essentially it was like, oh, first turn they threw down 2... Second turn they threw down 2 blockers. It's like, oh yeah, it really slows you down. There's nothing you can do about it. But other than that, unless you get like a perfect opening hand or you get like really good searches, you just slow down too much. But no, it's a good deck. It's just not tier 1 anymore. Mastimon, it's tier 2. No, it's not Rogue. Is it tier 2? It's not tier 1. It's tier 2. Really good deck. Same kind of thing with the Bielzy. It just massively good at just getting rid of things on the field. A little bit of Tamer hate, which is good because you do upend it into defeat if you like that. You do generally run 1 or 2 chaoses, so you do have options of Tamer hate, especially if they've got like a tame with all the Digimon underneath it. You just go, no, thank you. Go to it. Tier 2, maybe tier 1, depending on like how like heavy the format becomes with cross arts. But for now, I think it's tier 2. But I enjoy it there. Jesmon X might be tier 1 in like the weird, like not quite pure build. From what I've seen of it, like for 1 memory, you can go straight up into GX and just basically just upset everyone, which I think is what it's meant to do. This is more of a weird, like cracking a board into a massive wide state. I don't really know what to say about it. Like I've got a few like deck lists, and I don't like how they look, but they obviously work because they keep winning things. So it must be better than I thought it was originally. Blue! Oh, yes, blue hybrid is... Oh, good, why? I don't think anyone even play this London Regionals because they just know it's without 4 Tommies, it's just awful. I mean, I think 2 Tommies would still be quite awkward for the deck to work, but having just 1, it's just dead now. Keep trying, I suppose. I think Blue Flare is basically the only deck that can really like do this now, where you have to play like 1 Tommy, then you play like 3 Sora and Joes, you play like 4 Christophers, and then you just hope to God you can do something about it. Armor. Armor is tier 2. Only because it's still just as good as it was last format, but they didn't get any better than last format. It didn't get any new Vs, didn't get any new armor forms, as far as I'm aware. Somebody did mention that you could obviously run Deca Greymon in this, because all of your level 4s are blue, so you could just armor into armor, so you just armor purge the armor purge, and then you can digivolve into this.
If that is a good variant, I don't know, but like, give it a try if you want to. If you've got the cards for it, give it a try. I even might give it a go. To me, it's just that more armor purge. But I don't think it's going to be higher than tier 2. You'll see like some competitive play with it because it's a fairly cheapish deck. Still fairly good, and there's quite a few plays you can make of it. If you haven't already, go look at the videos on my channel. There's a nice, beautiful competitive one. I think it was versus D Brigade, and they just smashed it. They did so good. Phanemon Controller, I believe this is. What I've seen, this is a tier 2 deck. It's good, has its things, but it does lose out to this card because if you have a deletion, you just go to the deck. But no, I think this is going to be... It's got some good points and some bad points. Obviously, if you're running like this as the top end to Masty, or as an additional to Masty, it's going to do the same thing. You essentially use this as your core, and then this is like your other level 6 that you use, obviously, if you can't DNA. But, you know, deleting something or gaining a recovery is always pretty good in most decks, especially if, you know, you're in a meta where things are trying to rush you down as hard as possible, that one can just throw them off the game. And then you've got the beautiful Xros. So you've got the Shoutmon deck. Shoutmon is tier 1. It's very consistent. It's very good. Although it's one of those decks that can just instantly brick and you're like, I can't do anything. Everything is fairly good. It's a fairly fun deck. Unfortunately, I've not been able to play it yet. I'm still waiting for my cards to come in the post. Same for a lot of these newer decks, I'm stuck. So a lot of this is here. There's no Ragnarlord on this list, which if I remember in editing, I'll put here, but it's oh god, why? Ragnarlord is literally the only deck I currently have built because it's the only one I have cards where I can build enough of the newer stuff. So I just wanted to have one new deck to play with for a little bit until I get my cards in. The biggest issue I've had with it is it's so slow, and it's a weird deck where like you don't do enough drawing. I think if you mash some of the old BT3 cards in with it, it might make more sense where you've got searchers. Your searchers search for 2, which is really good. And then you've got your colours. So if you try and figure out if you want to do like a black base or a red base, then you go from there. I don't necessarily think like it's amazing, but I do think it has the option of actually being better than it is, depending on how you want to play it. It's probably rogue to tier 2. I don't necessarily think it is oh god why, but I do think it is here somewhere. I actually didn't know if a Phanemon here was meant to be Yellow Hybrid, because obviously Yellow Hybrid's kind of had that big hit now as well. But that's kind of the issue with a lot of the other decks. A lot of the other decks were, back in the day of like Japan, they were essentially Yellow Hybrids with new top ends. You'd have this as Yellow Hybrid, this was Yellow Hybrid. So Kuya mode, wherever you've gone, next to it was also like Yellow Hybrid base. But obviously this one can run its own core. It can run its own core. It's got the Reen, it's got the Cubies, it's got the Towers now. You've got the good Sakuyamon, which is still actually doing really well price-wise. And then you've got the old Sakuyamon, if you just want to have 1 or 2 of those, just so you can throw them down on the field and be like, yeah, bring the giant stack out of the breeding area, you can't do anything now. I do think this is a fairly good position for what the current format looks like. There's no tier 0 decks, and if you ever hear one say, oh, you know, no. Black or Greymon, doing super well. Greymon has like a really good matchup into these two, and it's fairly good against these. Obviously got D-Dig Evolve, but this thing's kind of like, oh, let me crash into security and die, and let me like recover and then like go again. Garuru essentially got battle damage resistance, so it doesn't really mind like being crashed into because it will just shake it off. And then Alpha's just a big massive beat stick that just wants to smash down as much security as possible. D Brigade wants to throw little bodies at you, and if they die, awesome. If they don't, awesome. Jesmon X is just let me get really big and really strong and let me throw myself at you. Shoutmon, but Shoutmon obviously doesn't really care about dying or not. Imperial is always, it's just doing the same thing again. Try and get to a level 5 as quick as possible. Do as much hits as possible. Go into your level 6. Chuck out 2 level 4s, and then try and go into another Peldramon if you can. Beelzemon, let me build up my trash and then like shoot you in the face. Dark Knight, I think it was more of a grindy deck. It's still a bit of a beat stick. Minerva, again, it's loop, die, swing, die, swing, die. Fairly like purple thing, but it's still doing pretty good. Sakuyamon, it's just essentially about like getting your security going. So you've always got like 4 or 5 security on the go constantly. Venusmon is just meant to be a battle control deck, but you can just punch it over still. Bloomlord going wide strategy deck, but doesn't have all the options it currently does. Still a good deck, still got lots of options to play with. It just doesn't have like the perfect rookie anymore to find security. Brandis, again, just a big beat stick. It just isn't as quick as these ones. D-Reaper, kind of a defensive deck, but not doing a lot of things right now because it's a bit slow. Having the
having the X antibody option does help, but not necessarily enough to do enough. Nasty, I think Nasty's great. It's one of my favourite decks to play, but again, it's not tier 1 quite yet. When we get to BT11 and we get all the new support, it probably will be a tier 1 deck then, because it's just so good. And having a Tamer that is both yellow and purple will make things so much easier when you want to try and get your option cards out. Armor, yet again, it's in a good position. Maybe if you want to dabble with the Deca Greymon, maybe that'll make it better. But for now, I think it's in a good place. Again, I don't know if it's meant to be a Phanemon Controller or not. It's meant to be like Yellow Hybrid Core, or what it's actually meant to be. But it's a good deck. It's very fun. A few matches I've seen of it, looks like a fairly interesting deck. Rogue, yeah, if you've seen the BT12 support for Machine Dramon, it's going to be Rogue for another 6 months, but then it's a good chance it's going to be like tier 1.5, tier 1. Depending how fast the format is, maybe even a tier 0 deck, just because of how strong it is. So it ignores essentially anything it wants to. Galakmon, yeah, Galakmon's just stuck in a horrible place right now where it's too slow for what it wants to do. Has to depend on your opponent having things in the field, and if they're all dying constantly, there's nothing you can do about it. When we do get to EX3 though, we do get the option of having a mill strategy, so you can mill yourself and your opponent out, and then hopefully they can't do anything, and then by the time they've got like 20 or 30 trash, you digivolve into a BT2 Galakmon, swing, remove all their security, and then swing for game. Again, Bielzy needs support, needs the Impmon, it needs to be able to search stuff, constantly go around and around and around. It's not doing that. Otherwise, it's still in the same place. As I said, Rogue more than tier 2, just because it's like if you're good at it, you're good at it, and your bit of luck is great, but not quite there. From what I hear from people who've been playing against this, it's doing really bad, so I'm just going to put in Rogue for now. Maybe it'll get better once people figure it out. I think it's like hurting for the Belugas that we didn't get. And then Oh God Why Shiver, not a terrible deck. I think it has like a few bad matchups, but it's very good into a few of these. Like really good into BLZ, really good into Masty, if I remember correctly. The option cards don't affect you. Sakuya can't do option cards because you can't play option cards. Is that about it? Maybe even into Gao as well, because you can't Kongu it for a turn. Dan Devi, I have no idea what's here. If someone can tell me in the comments why this is here, let me know, please. I'm obviously missing something. But again, this is like a, oh god, why? I just don't understand. And then Blue Hybrid's just dead. Like, I think people still play it because obviously the deck's really cheap and it always has been. But now, it's even cheaper now because obviously Davis just got reprints. So, woo, even more blue support. And then if I do remember to put it here, Ragnar. It's not terrible, it's just, it's too slow. Maybe Rogue if we can figure out a way to make it quicker or more consistent. But for now it is a, oh god, why? And that's about it, guys. Thank you for being here. My tier list is more of a case of like what I feel like. I don't think any format we've had so far is a tier 0 format. The closest we had, I think, was Lord Nightmon, which a lot of people realised was quite bad. So hopefully we don't get that again. But on that one, thank you for being here. We'll see you guys soon. And hopefully you guys are having a great time and enjoying the BT10 format. See you guys soon. Peace out. Goodbye.